Well, right now we have in studio with us Mr. Hubert Gautier, who is running for school board, District 9.
How you doing, Miss Carol?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me
It's the
on.
closing days of the campaign, so it's getting
Yes,
kind of wild, huh?
I'm super excited about it. It's been a long campaign.
Yeah. So tell the people about you first, and then we'll talk about your goals for the campaign.
Well, I was born and raised here. I went to Milton, went to Como. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration from SNHU, and I'm a local business owner. I've had a bunch of experience. I've been an air personality for another radio station, and I've been an area manager for Black& Decker DeWalt, and I've worked on the rigs in the oil field. So my
And you're
experience is
doing real
varied.
estate and that kind of stuff too. So you have a
Yes,
pretty
ma'am.
varied. So whatever possessed you to run for school board with all that going on?
Now I only do real estate. So my oldest goes to Southside. I'm the only candidate with all three of my kids in public school.
Hmm.
And last year we had let's call it a miscommunication where David never came home, and I didn't know where he was for about 3 hours. And I called the school and Jeremy Hidalgo, and I ended up getting a call from Catherine Drexel and Broussard at about 5 o'clock asking me to go pick him up, which is where the bus driver dropped him off. And then a couple months later, I saw the news story about the kid walking around the parking lot by himself, and I thought, man, if they'd have just jumped that bus driver the first time, this wouldn't have
It was
happened.
the same one?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And then I looked at who was running, and my two competitors, and so one of them is going to do the things the way that it's always been done, and I didn't want that. And then the other one is more politician type, and I don't like that either because I'm just a businessman. I just want to fix what I can. So that's when I decided to run about 2 days before the election.
Hmm. All right. So 2 days before qualifying, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
All right. So you have motivation there, but how do you see fixing those kind of issues?
Uh,
And what are the issues? Let me say, besides transportation, obviously that's one, but what are some of the other issues?
we have a bunch of issues, and for me to list them all would take days, literally. But to start off, transportation is one. We need to look at probably outsourcing to one person instead of selling routes and keeping part of it for the school board with the buses breaking down. You look at Florida and Texas; they don't have problems with that. They outsource it to one person, and
So
that
it's a
company.
competitive bid, and the
Yes, ma'am.
company runs that.
Yes, ma'am. And so that company gets new buses. They take care of their buses, and it's cheaper for
And the
everybody.
liability is theirs.
The risk drops, yes.
Yeah, maintenance and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, ma'am. Another thing that I want to look at is the budget. When we did the Louisiana Women's Voters Forum, Dr. Aguilar said, if we move $1 in that budget, then somebody's going to lose their job. And I frankly think if that's the case, somebody needs to be fired because we're not planning for growth. We're not planning on updating schools or expanding schools. Literally every dollar we have goes to programs and to people. And so we have to carve out that budget to expand schools. And we also need to pick up the teachers' pay because teachers are below the national average, which is
Mhm.
55,000 a year, and they don't even make that. I know a guy with 2 masters, been teaching for 15 years in the school system, still doesn't make the national average. I happen to think that's pathetic. And so when you look at it from a business aspect, you really need to build that culture that make teachers want to come in, and that's not the culture we want to have.
Well, it seems to me that they make it more attractive for the competent and experienced and long-term teachers to get out of the classroom and go into administration. And it seems to me we have the reward in the exact opposite way. We should be rewarding the classroom teachers, especially those in really tough, lower performing schools where they have really serious social issues that they're facing every single day. It seems to me the pay scale is exactly bass backwards. Let's just say it that way.
Yeah, so we have 64% of all of our students are below the poverty level, which means 71% of our schools are Title I schools. Okay. And those teachers, they have a rough go at it, and they're the lowest paid. So we need to find a way to pay the teachers. We're ranked 40th in the nation for recruiting teachers, 43rd for retaining them, and we're the 7th worst place in the nation for a teacher to work. You can't educate kids like that. It's just not going to work.
All right, 70% in Title I schools, but Isn't it true that in some of those classrooms, they are way below what you would consider? I mean, they have the lower number of students, right, in a Title I class. Many of those classrooms, they're not to capacity, right?
Well, I would not think
Some of
that
them
they are.
anyway.
I would not think that they are because if you average the students, if you average all the students out, you're going to average 738 kids per school. And one of the problems I have is that the school board still hasn't realized how many children it takes to run a school. And so if we don't know that, then we just waste a bunch of money on different programs and we don't know how much we actually need to facilitate the school. And that's something that I want to get to the bottom of.
Well, it seems there was some of us who thought that it was kind of crazy when they started moving around programs to try to fill up Como High School, and they still haven't done that. Their
Right.
kids still want to go to Southside. It's the shiny new thing, and so Como seems to be about what, at half capacity? North
Como's
Side is at half capacity.
Como is at 1,136 students right now, which is not bad.
That's
They
not
were
bad.
at 2,000 before the
Okay,
rezoning.
okay. Well,
The,
that's almost down almost half.
right, but they were at 800 last year.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a big jump. But whenever they talk about rezoning, there's two things that we need to realize. One, that charter school in Youngsville, they're going to build a 600 student facility, high school, within the next 2 years, and that's going to pull people from Southside and from Como. The other thing you have to think about is that when Southside opened up, about 550 students came from private schools into Southside.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about rezoning, you need to consider the fact that if you do rezone, at least half of those kids from the maps that I saw are going to go right back to private school and you're not doing anybody any good. So it's something that we need to be aware of, you know?
But government has not been known to be really that nimble in responding to current market conditions, and in this case, where the kids are going to be going, where the parents want the kids to go, et cetera. I mean, how do you see the school board responding to that? It just doesn't seem like it has been
It hasn't.
very nimble in that area.
It hasn't. And I think it's because they don't have any foresight. So a lot of what I tell people is when you do education your whole life, all you know is education. I've had the I've been blessed to work with different companies and see how they do things and see what best operates and how to forecast for things. You know, we don't use the Census Bureau, and what we really need to be using is the data that we already have in the school system. We know where every child lives, we know where every parent lives, we know what age, what education level they're at. And so we don't mine that data to forecast for anything. And that needs to start happening because it makes it easier and it streamlines the process whenever it comes to looking at expanding schools, reallocating resources where we need them. And so it's something that we need to do on a better level.
Hmm. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Hubert Gautier, and he is candidate for School Board District 9. We haven't really paid much attention to the school board. Maybe we should more, but there are so many candidates running city council, parish council, all over the place. So we appreciate you coming in, Hubert. We'll be right back on the Ross Report. Don't go away. All right, welcome back to the Ross Report. And we have Hubert Gautier in studio with us talking about school board. So that budget is massive. It really is a massive budget.
Yeah, I haven't even read through half of the budget yet. Truthfully, I don't think any of the school board reps have actually read through the budget. They just approve it. So I did, however, get a panel of teachers together. So when I am elected, they're willing to go through and say, this is what we need, this is what we don't need.
Well, isn't that refreshing? Somebody actually talking to the teachers and figuring out what the heck is going on.
Yes, ma'am.
That would be really
Both
refreshing.
retired and active teachers, because I want to
Yeah.
do a good job for the children. They're number one, and the teachers number two.
Well, the teachers are critical.
Yeah,
Can't do a good job for the kids without the right teachers.
absolutely. Like my whole platform has been two types of people in the educational system: teachers and those who support teachers. And the reason I say that is because if you look at any good business, they're going to build a culture in which the employee buys into the program and sells the product to the consumer. In our case, the teachers can't buy into the program. And we need to develop that for them. We need to give them a reason to be proud of what they do because they get it from parents, they get it from
Oh, yeah.
administration, they get
Yeah.
it from school board. So we need to do a better job with them.
All right. The thing that has always bothered me, Hubert, about our school system is all of these programs. No Child Left Behind, Every Student Succeeds, Race to the Top, Common Core. what I saw something the other day. It was another cute little slogan. I'm sick of these cute little slogans that keep us on the bottom. We're on
Yes,
the bottom. We're teaching to the test. We're not educating kids. We're teaching to the test. How
correct.
do we change that?
Well, we can look at other states and see how what they've done, but the bottom line is that Louisiana has a completely different culture. And so my dad spent the first 6 to 8 weeks of school out in the fields picking cotton. And growing up, a degree didn't mean a whole lot to people because you were
Right.
going to end up either working at the docks or you were going to work on the rigs. And this is the first time in history that the culture is changing and they're saying, hey, wait, we want our kids to be better educated. And so we need to consider that whenever we're looking at how we're going to do things. So
All right. Now about that budget, though, there's a lot of Title I money that comes in. Correct?
that is not included in the budget
So
because they can't account for it.
that's not mm-mm, that's not part of the unified budget.
Mm-mm. No, the budget 510 million that we have is
Right.
from taxes.
That's the unified budget. That
Yes.
includes everything.
Yes, but
Local, but not federal.
not Title One.
All
No.
right. All right. So how much do we get in Title I money?
I've called and I've tried to find out, but they won't give me real numbers. So to the best of my knowledge, we get at least 18 million a month.
A month.
Yeah, from what I've seen, from what, and I could be mistaken about it, but
Well, I know because we have also when we were looking at that last tax that was being proposed, the property tax that was being proposed.
yes,
Or was
ma'am.
it a sales tax?
It was a sales
It was a
tax
sales tax for the $561 million for buildings and all that kind of stuff. And it was very hard to drill down into, every aspect of the budget, the unified budget or just the one from the sales tax and the property tax, et cetera. So it is, I would say most of these governmental budgets are unnecessarily complicated.
If you look at the second page of the budget for this year, second page, it has $260,000 to other expenses. Okay, that's not what a budget is built for. Where's that $260,000?
Yeah, what are other expenses?
Yeah. So there's a lot that we can do with the budget, regardless of what people say. And people are not going to like the fact that I go in there and I say, hey, it's time to cut this out. But it's something that needs to be done for our kids, for our teachers, for our parents. I want to be able to make school better for our kids. I want to keep them safe. I want to make things easier for parents and teachers. And I want to support the teachers.
Well, most of the teachers that I've met in this area are rather conservative themselves. And some of them did not support that tax because they felt that it was going to hit them unfairly. And even in that 2002 tax that was supposed to be dedicated to classroom teachers, it said classroom 3 times in that proposition. And for a while, they had gotten away from it. Now, there was such an outcry caused when they tried to pass the 561 million. And we pointed attention to that because they kept saying it's totally dedicated, but their language on the ballot was not dedicated.
Yeah, it was not dedicated.
No, and so when we said 3 times in that 2002, it said classroom, and yet it was going to other than classroom teachers. So how do you propose to keep a handle on that? That's really difficult to do.
First, whenever I talked to the teachers about that same tax, their impression was we're not getting any of that money. So don't vote for it because I don't know where it's going to end up, and that's an issue. That's a huge issue.
They still feel that they're not getting the benefit of that?
I think they're not happy with it, is the case. So they get some of the benefits, but I think it can be done better.
Well, I can tell you that looking at that, they also had things for they had reserve funds for other things.
Yes.
Other than classroom teachers.
Yes,
And,
ma'am.
And so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in my position, I think the best way to do it is to keep a really good eye on the budget and to allot money for what we allotted money for. And that's it. If you raise the tax to pay the teacher, then the teacher gets the money and that's it. I don't care what else goes on. You have to be true to what you do and very transparent.
What is the point of doing a 13th and 14th check when you should actually be doing that every check? Giving them a raise,
Right.
Correcting,
So,
you know what I mean? Correcting the
So the problem with this whole idea is that sometimes it's $800 and sometimes it's $2,000, and so there's 14 checks actually. One is the interest on the money,
mm-hmm.
and the other is the actual money. The teachers cannot determine whether or not they want to get added to their salary or take the chance and keep getting that big check at the end of the year, which you can't blame them for.
No.
But people don't realize how the school and the economy are tied. So if the economy keeps going backwards, they're going to have to find somewhere to replace that money in that budget. And where do you think they're going to take it from?
Yeah, teachers.
Yeah, because there's only so many taxes they can raise. And I've spoke to the teachers about this because I'm smart enough to see it coming. It's like sharks circling circling in water, you know. So they need to pay attention to that, and that's a real component of why we need to start cutting out that budget.
What about all these special programs? I mean, some of them seem to be redundant in some ways.
They are. Listen, Hooked on Phonics still works. We don't need to be spending millions of dollars on new programs just to
I had a
be.
teacher actually tell me that they were talking about, or they were going back to phonics to teach phonics because it works.
It works,
It does
and
work.
it's cheaper. You know, it costs us a lot of money to do these programs. A lot of programs are paid by Title I money, and Title I money for those programs, they're only supposed to be good for about 2 years. But what happens is they end up going in front of the school board and saying, hey, we've been doing this. It's been working somewhat, and we want to continue to do it. And the school board funds it because they don't want to make anybody mad. But, you know, my point is, you had your 2 years. Unless we can do something with that budget, we don't need to be dedicating any more funds to programs. We need to facilitate the children going to school.
Right. And I think a lot of taxpayers feel we've been increasing taxpayer money. I mean, property taxes have gone up, so the school board has benefited from that, and sales tax collections have gone up, so that you benefited from that, and yet we haven't seen an appreciable increase in the scores. And I would say I don't blame that on the teachers. I blame that on the fundamentals of what kind of programming we're putting in the schools for the teachers to teach,
That's
how we're
correct.
telling them to teach,
And
how
and
they
the
have to
state actually mandates that,
Yeah.
so they have a thing that they have to follow, and you'll hear them talk about following the curriculum with fidelity. Well, that's put out by Bessie and the state. So Bessie and the state need to do a lot of work as well before it even trickles down to us.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think people pay enough attention to what's going on at Bessie
Correct.
and the state superintendent.
That's very correct.
That's a whole other story, though.
That's
Hubert,
very correct.
thanks for coming in this afternoon.
Thank you for having
Appreciate
me.
it. Good to talk to you. Good luck to you. Your number on the ballot and how people can get in.
118.
How can people get in touch with you?
My cell phone number is 337-280-3025. It is also on my website, hubertgauthier.com. If you need something, you can call me personally instead of calling the school board or anybody else. So
This is a guy who's putting himself out there. Thank you, Hubert, for coming in. Good luck to you.
thank you, ma'am.
All right. Take care. We have got to take a break. We'll be right back on the Ross Report. Don't go anywhere.